how do you raise your kids so they don't grow up with silver spoons in their mouths?
My son was almost 16 years old. He had $5,000 in the bank. I said, Mike, why don't you keep the money? And when I get a deal, you can invest your money in the deal. And this is where you need to be a parent. I knew that I didn't want him to spend 40% of his net worth on something that he didn't really need. He ended up investing that $5,000. That $5,000 has turned into a 7-figure net worth. For me, once they start to turn 14, 15 years old, start having those conversations.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest truly needs no introduction in the multifamily investment world. He's a co-founder of Jake Gino, host of multiple top podcasts, and an investor who has grown his portfolio to over 1,800 units and 350 million in assets under management. He's also a certified money coach, author, educator, and now leads Barbaro 360, a family-centered financial education and legacy building company. Gino, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex, for having me on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you stopping by. I'm very excited for this episode and to share your story with our listeners. But let's start from the beginning. You weren't always a multifamily tycoon. What did those early years look like for you?
It depends when you mean by early years, because I started investing in real estate while I had my restaurant. I owned the restaurant for years and years. I had two parents that were immigrants. They both came from Italy. So in me, I was instilled hard work. I mean, when you own a restaurant, you're always working. And I just learned how to work hard from an early age. But I knew that at one point, the restaurant turned into a job. You know, if we go back into the 80s and 90s, people complain about they don't make enough money now. Things changed back then. You could have a nice middle class lifestyle because there wasn't all of the temptations. We drove simple cars. We didn't have cell phones. We had one bill. Things were different. I mean, now you have so much opportunity to spend money. Back then you didn't. So, whatever money you made, it was great. And we had a great life with the restaurant. When I went into business myself back in 1994, that's how long ago I opened my restaurant. I had it for about 15 years. And at that point, when I got to 2007, that's why I say around 15 years, my dad passed away. And when he passed away in 2007, I said, am I living his dream or am I living my dream? And that's when my personal development journey, I think, really started and really kicked in. I read the book by T. Harv Eker called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And in the book, he said, your fruits are in your roots. And my roots were not strong. They were shallow. So hence the fruits that were the outward, the value, the experience, the results, they weren't there in my life. And at that point, the Great Recession comes around and I say to myself, I can't keep doing what I'm doing here. I can't make enough money to sustain my family. I had 4 kids at the time. And I decided I've made a couple of big mistakes in real estate, but it wasn't that the real estate was risky. It's that I was risky. I was the one that didn't have the experience. I didn't know what a deal was. I didn't have a map. I was the one who was making the mistakes. So in 2008, I decided to go all in on real estate, really multifamily, and really learn, get a mentor. I joined a couple mentorship groups. In 2009, I met my business partner, Jake, and Jake was a pharmaceutical rep. He was coming to the restaurant, taking orders out of the restaurant, catering orders, and bringing them to doctors' offices and selling drugs, selling vaccines. He decided, I don't want to be doing this. I'm like, I don't want to be at the restaurant. So the drug rep and the pizza guy got together and we started investing in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2011. But it's one of those journeys where I started investing myself, but I didn't have the knowledge or the experience. And I was just looking like most beginning investors do. I just want a deal. What's a deal? I have this $30,000 and I want to put it somewhere. And that is one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, that most investors make when they start out.
Yes, but there's so many directions, right? You just say from restaurant, go right to real estate. Why did you pick real estate in the first place?
That is an excellent question, because for me, you have to choose the vehicle that you feel comfortable with. You have to choose the vehicle that you enjoy. You have to choose the vehicle that aligns with your values. I own the restaurant. It was a nice little building, about 2,000 square feet. My mom owned the building. And we were partners in the restaurant. And upstairs, there were 3 apartments. On a Friday night, I'll never forget this. It was in the middle of the winter. There's 6 inches of snow outside. I'm all by myself, shoveling the driveway, throwing salt. I'm freezing my ass off. Thank God I don't live in New York anymore. Those days are well behind me. But I remember how cold and how lonely it was that night. And I look up at the building, and upstairs, there's a window there and there's a light on. And it dawned on me. My mom is at home getting paid in her sleep while I'm here, and it's another week and I ain't getting paid again. And that's when it dawned on me. People in real estate make money in their sleep. And for me, from that point on, I said, I'm not going to quit this restaurant. I still need to work in the restaurant to pay for my lifestyle. But I want to start investing in real estate. Specifically for me, it was multifamily real estate because people need a place to live. It's a basic human need. I like that kind of business. I was already in customer service. I already dealt with customers at the restaurant, and I love the idea of dealing with tenants. I don't know why, but I just like that. And I like the fact that I could put money down in a building, buy a building for $1 million. I only need $200,000 to buy $1 million asset, but I control 100% of those benefits. And I get some great tax benefits, and I get paid every month. And it's not full time. And I just fell in love with that idea. And that's what drew me to multifamily. I didn't want to fix and flip. I already had a job. Now, if you're starting out and you need to create equity to be able to invest, that's a different story. I already had some equity set aside. And I thought to myself, once I start buying real estate, I can start buying these assets. If I need to sell them to get some equity, I can do that, but I know that I can refinance also. So for me, it was crystal clear that real estate was the vehicle that was going to take me from point A, from my restaurant, to be able to get out of the restaurant and to get into real estate full time, and ultimately to be able to build a portfolio that would be able to support my lifestyle.
It's very interesting because out of all the real estate assets you pick, even apartment complexes, multifamily, but also your mom had a mixed use building. So it was apartment upstairs, commercial downstairs, but you only look at the windows upstairs. You didn't think about, hey, your business is making like, I don't know, apartments. This is where I want to be. I want to be in a warm, cozy apartment. And I want to have place for myself if this happens. So tell me, why did you pick apartments and you just shy away from retail? It's the first thing.
Alex, that is another great question. Now, if you're in business and you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or you're a pizza guy, I would consider buying mixed use. I should have when we bought a building back in 2006 before my dad passed away. It was a nice building, but it was a strip center. Bad part of the market cycle, bad market itself, bad location, but it had retail in the middle, bottom floor. Underneath, it was industrial, and upstairs, it was apartments. What I should have done is I should have gone into that building and taken over the pizzeria that was there and taken over that business, run that business, and pay myself the rent. And at that point, I had good food. I could have really created a ton of traffic for that shopping center and made that shopping center worth more money. But I didn't do that. I didn't understand business at the time. All I thought was the weekly paycheck and the comfort. I only knew what I knew. I didn't stretch out and I didn't learn. Now, for anybody that's out there that owns a business, I would absolutely look for a little mixed use building where you can have other people in this shopping center that you're buying. Let's say you have like 2,000 square feet, you're a dentist. If you can have a 6,000 square foot little shopping center, the other 4,000 square feet, you can rent them out. That'll help you pay for the mortgage. And over time, you're paying down the principal of the loan and you're creating wealth that way. And you are the master of your destiny. Nobody's going to kick you out of that spot. Nobody's going to raise your rent. And you're creating equity long term. But for me, apartments, it was pretty simple. I didn't want to deal with strip malls because I got burned. I didn't like mobile home parks because I lost money in a mobile home park. I just didn't want to deal with that resident base. It's a different kind of resident base. I didn't like self-storage because I thought self-storage was more of like transient. Back in the day, it was more of a short-term business. I didn't want to get into the self-storage space, especially up in the Northeast. Now in Florida, different thing. Everyone needs self-storage in Florida because nobody's got a basement. So, and there are a lot of people moving down here. So for me, I was just focused on apartments. I understood that business cycle. I understood the need for it. And that's why I just felt comfortable going into the apartment space.
I like how you went through, hey, I don't know about this too. I need a mentor, I need education, I need a partner, I need to figure out all these pieces before I get my first deal. So how long did it take you to get to your first deal?
That's another excellent question. Remember, I had a life before Jake and I had a life after Jake. The life before Jake, I lost a ton of money. And I always say to people, there's two ways you can learn in this world. You can either learn on the street or you can learn in the classroom. And I was learning on the street and I lost a ton of money doing that and a ton of time. When I decided to, hey, let me start learning in the classroom, it's going to cost me more money short term, but it's going to shorten my learning curve. I'm going to get around people who have done it, right? Success leaves clues, and all the people that I decided to learn from were rather successful. So when I started in 2008, I was just learning, and Jake shows up in 2009. We're still getting to know each other. But remember, back then in 2009 and 2010, everything was slow. There was just, everyone was afraid. So we didn't really do anything. But when Jake decided to move to Knoxville in 2011, he moves down there. It took us 18 months to find the first deal. But the difference between life before Jake in life after Jake is I had a map or the process when I met Jake. We created the buy right, the manage right, and the finance right. We had a structure. We had a framework that we could follow. And that's the difference. And I wasn't looking at multiple asset niches. I wasn't looking for self-storage. I wasn't looking for single family homes. We were just focused on multifamily. Let's get really good at this space. Let's understand it. Let's buy our first couple of deals. Let's manage them ourselves. And that's how we're going to learn. And as I'm buying these deals and investing in these deals, I've got coaches that I'm talking to. I've got coaches that can make sure that my underwriting is conservative. I got coaches that are helping me take over these assets. I've got coaches that if I need to raise capital, they would help me to be able to learn how to raise capital as well. So for me, those first couple of deals, they took a while, but the irony was, Alex, after that first deal, after 18 months, our second deal came 3 months after that. It's because the broker liked us. We executed on the deal properly. And that next opportunity just showed up and we said, hey, let's buy this deal as well.
So what was the size of your first multifamily deal?
The first deal, and we still own that first deal back in 2013, it was 25 units, $700,000. So it was around $25,000 per unit, but we got 10% seller financing. So we only needed to come up with 10% of the down payment. So we came up with around $60,000, $65,000, $70,000 with closing costs. I didn't have all the money myself. So it was me, my business partner, Jake, and my brother joined us on the first deal. And that deal was incredible because we had bought it, at that price point. We had $13,000 a month in rents coming in. Now, there was a lot of issues with that property. They had weekly renters. We had to turn those into monthly renters. A lot of people weren't paying. Bed bugs all over the place. Septic fields that needed to be replaced. So it's not as if we bought this palatial place, but for us, it's what we could afford. And it was one of those things where we started out and we cash flowed from day one. The second deal, 3 months later, was 35 units. That was $850,000. But that one, we brought another partner in. So there was 4 of us on that deal. And that deal was phenomenal. Same thing. It was generating over $10,000 a month in revenue. And within 6 months, we went from $10,000 a month in revenue to $17,000 a month in revenue because there were so many things that were wrong with the property. Rents were lower. People weren't paying. The management was terrible. But I think the reason why we got that second deal is because the broker liked us. We executed on the first deal. We had a little bit of credibility. And that second deal, like I said, there was a lot of problems. We had a motivated seller, and that broker brought us that second deal as well.
I love how throughout the years you went through so many deals. You underwrote hundreds and thousands of apartment complexes, and you've been personally involved in probably 3,000 to 5,000 units one way or another, right? Mm-hmm. And you still remember your first and second deal. And this is incredible. Everyone, you first remember your first deal. And just tell me this: at that time, were you still in New York, or you already moved to Knoxville as well?
No, I moved to St. Augustine, Florida back in 2017. My business partner moved to Knoxville. So I was in New York. So Jake was boots on the ground. So, the partnership worked really well, and it still works really well to this day because Jake provides value to the partnership and I provide value to the partnership. And my business partner, Mike, who's still investing with us today, he provided value. I didn't have the strong balance sheet, neither did Jake, but Mike did. Mike was working full-time as a hedge fund manager. He didn't have time to manage the assets. Guess what? Jake had time. Jake was boots on the ground. So what did Gino do? Gino understood the business plan. I knew how to underwrite deals. I knew the bookkeeping. I had the operations of the business on that side. So when you put people together we're sort of complementary because we all work hard. We're all pretty intelligent. We're all really driven. We're all responsibility. We all want control, but we understand that, hey, there's certain facets of the business that you handle this facet, I handle that facet, and we're all responsible to each other. That's what a partnership needs more than anything else. Aligning ourselves with values, understanding why we're doing this. We don't want to work in our W-2 jobs anymore. We want to make this our full time, and we're not going to make excuses. I mean, Jake never said to me, Gino, I can't go collect rents today early on. I'm just busy. I got a sales job. And I never said to Jake, hey, Jake, you know what? It's Friday. I've got to work at the restaurant. I can't do the bills. That never happened. That was never a thought in our minds to ever make an excuse. That's the thing that I think you need to understand when you're getting into a partnership. It's just like a marriage. You can't let your partner down. You can't make excuses, and you need to understand what the expectations are. You need to have an alignment of values and vision that needs to be complementary. If Jake wants to all of a sudden go into self-storage, and I'm like, dude, I want multifamily, it's not going to work. If Jake all of a sudden says, hey, I want to sell this asset, I don't want to do this, I want to fix and flip and make some equity, but I'm like, Jake, I want to create wealth long-term. That partnership sooner or later is not going to function properly. So understand, choosing a partner is important. It's really what helped me be able to scale. But at the same time, you need to understand what you're getting into when you're getting into a partnership.
But you don't know how partner will react in the first deal, right? So you have to go through the struggle. You
That's
have
right.
to understand. You got lucky. Your first partner, you're still partners today, and this is incredible. What was the main lessons from these partnerships, and how do you recommend other people to find the right partner? Where you look for good sides, and where's the red flags, and hey, listen, you have to avoid it. Besides this, accountability during the process.
So, Alex, before I met Jake, I had invested in a mobile home park back in 2005. And I would consider that, quote unquote, my first partnership, although it technically wasn't. It was more of a syndication, but I didn't know back then. I gave this gentleman money to invest in a mobile home park deal with the expectation that I was going to be passive. He was going to run the deal. He had no skin in the game. So technically it was a syndication, but I looked at it as a partnership. Now, 16 months, 18 months after we invested, draws stopped. 2 years later, property was foreclosed on. I lost all of my money. Now, what I can tell you why that partnership went bad and why partnerships are good, there's just really one phrase, and I think it sums it up best. It's called values-based decision-making. Do your values align with your partner? Now, when I look at that first deal, I can blame my partner all I want. He was horrible. He was terrible. I don't know if he was a criminal, but he was absolutely negligent and he was a moron. But at the same time, I'm the one who wrote the check. I invested in that deal. I didn't do due diligence. Did I get on a plane, fly down to Florida, and walk the properties? Nope. Did I understand what the cap rates were? No. Did our values align? Did Mike put money into that deal and have skin in the game? Nope. So I made so many mistakes as a partner. If you're going to choose a partner, you really need to look at your values, and you really need to, I guess, have complementary values. Back in 2020, we brought on a team member who, he was young. He wanted to continue to buy and buy and buy. And we knew that the asset prices in 21 and 22, they were just ridiculous. We weren't able to buy these assets, but his goal was singular. He wanted to expand at all costs. That went in direct misalignment with what our values were. Our values were buy a couple hundred units of really quality assets, that cash flow, and that we can control long term, not go out and buy risky deals. So when you're looking for a partner, make sure that your values align. And I think the last thing I would say is, if you think you're out there looking for a better partner, you need to get better yourself as well. I wasn't good enough on my first partnership to be into that partnership. I didn't know the business of real estate. I couldn't bring any value to that deal other than the capital. So if you're going to go into a partnership, you have to suspend the idea that making any excuses. You have to be accountable to your partner. You're putting food on your partner's table, and your partner's doing the same to you. So you can't make excuses. And that's, I think, the best thing that I can say about partnerships. And that's why I think Jake and I have lasted this long, is because we don't make excuses. We're there to help each other out. And times do get tough. But sometimes you're all by yourself. It's pretty good to get a call from Jake and say, hey, brother, it's okay. We'll get through this. That's where I think the power of partnerships, lies.
Right, and I think the biggest lesson here, right? You don't expect them from partner always to give you, hey, what can he give me? But
Yes.
what you can provide to your partner, and how you can complement his skills, and how can you make it even better. It's always better. There's two people looking at one deal than one person. There's always different kind of angles that you can see, different approach and this stuff. And I like what you mentioned, that syndications is kind of partnership. It is partnerships. That's why they're called general partners and limited partners. Everyone partners. Someone providing money, someone providing their time and the execution and experience to the table, and
Hmm.
it's still partnerships in any way or form.
Hmm.
So choosing the right partner to operate your deal, it's one of the crucial pieces, right?
I agree.
And understand it, but also it's not a blame game. The moment you start taking ownership of everything, and I think in any business, not in real estate only, but in anywhere, the moment you start taking ownership of your situation and start blaming other people for where you are right now, this is when the magic happens. When you started to learn it better and you understand it better, and you take in ownership of these small situations that happens to you and analyze it how to become better. Because in the end of the day, even a bad deal is still an experience. Even all of the bad deals is an experience in a nutshell, right? So it's gonna have a bad deal and bad experience.
Tony Robbins says you're either moving from desperation or inspiration. Most people are just sitting there. They're a little uncomfortable, but they don't really want change. Like I said in 2008, I was pissed. I was pissed at Obama. I was pissed at Bush for bailing out the banks. I was pissed at everybody. But then when I took a real hard, long look and I looked around and there were people that were making money and I wasn't one of them, I had to really take a hard look at myself and say, am I being the victim here? Who am I blaming? I'm blaming myself. I can't control anything that's external, but I can control about 95% of what's going on, which is internal. And once you understand that, and once you realize that, and once you reclaim that power and you start ingesting positive stuff and you start learning, it takes time. But if you can do that, things will get better. And that's the problem nowadays. It's so easy to be a victim. And I know times are tough and I know things are expensive, but you have to wonder and say to yourself, well, how is that person who came from overseas, who could barely speak a language and has now got a business and doing really well? Don't criticize the person. Find out what he did or she did. It is that simple. But sometimes we get caught in our own situation and we start blaming others. And you can blame. There's nothing wrong with blaming. That's your right. All I'm saying is that if you continue down that path in life, you will go nowhere. You will create no solutions. All you'll be looking at is problems. When I lost that money with Mike, all I thought of, that's what problem, what a huge problem. That's all I heard for the next 18 months. The solution or the opportunity that came out of that problem was, guess what? If I had just learned about real estate and I had gone and taken some classes and gotten a mentor, maybe I wouldn't have lost $172,000. Maybe that's what I should do. And that pain point led me to mentorship, which ultimately allowed me to create value in real estate and understand it, which ultimately led me to meet Jake, and I could provide value to Jake. And then that one day that I'm sitting in the restaurant, in the front, in the pizzeria, in walks my next business partner, Mike. Like I said, he was a hedge fund trader. He sits down and he starts talking about oil and natural gas and gold and inflation. And I'm the pizza guy and I have these pizza stains on my shirt. And I start talking back to him and he's like, wow, dude, you know what you're talking about. He misunderstood. He thought I was just a pizza guy, but I was prepared. If I was not responsible, I wouldn't have studied for all those years. And then he said to me, Gino, what are you doing in real estate? That was the conversation. I said, Mike, I'm buying assets at $850,000 that are generating $10,000 a month in rent. And he looks at me and goes, I'm buying $2 million homes and I'm renting them out for 10 grand. I said, Mike, what deal do you think is better? I'm 3Xing what you're doing. And he sat there for a second and he said, oh, okay. So it's not that I got lucky. God opened the door, put Mike in front of me, but I had to get prepared for that conversation. And I had to show Mike that I had something of value to provide for him. If you're a victim or you're blaming others, that opportunity may present itself, but you may not sit down and have that conversation with Mike.
No, I agree 100%. I think this is a very powerful message here, right? Some people just wait for gifts from universe. Hey, give me jackpot. Give me, hey, I'm waiting for this deal to come on me to fall in my lap, or
Uh-huh.
something gonna happen. Someone gonna give me a right check. I'm gonna find this in one investor. It doesn't happen like this. You
Hmm.
have to go intentionally go to this direction, and universe will give you those gifts along the way, but you have to work your way through it, right?
I agree. And that's the funniest phrase that I hear from the students that I used to mentor and teach at Jake and Gino. The deal just fell in my lap. I said, bro, I mean, it didn't just fall in your lap. You joined. You invested a ton of money into a program. You learned how to buy an asset. You created a buy right criteria. You went out there and called up and talked to brokers. You went out there and did property tours. You did countless underwritings. You talked to a lot of community banks and credit unions. And then 8 months later, all of a sudden, the broker calls up and says, John, I've got this 20 unit for you. You want to come out and take a look at it? And you think to yourself, wow, this deal just fell in my lap. There's a lot of things that you need to do in life in order for something to fall in your lap. Trust me.
You know, you cannot find something unless you're looking for it, right?
Right. That's right. Well, it's interesting. You know, Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote the book. I forgot. He's written so many books, but in one of them, he talks about the fact that we are doing things in life, and all we're doing is we're always looking forward, but we never look back. We never look at all the work that we've done, where we've come from. All we're trying to do is try to get to that light at the end of the tunnel, and we discount all the work that's gone into getting to that light at the end of the tunnel. Sit back, and if you're listening to this, just stop and enjoy the work that you put into it. Because for most of us who are entrepreneurs who are trying to find the next deal, it's always about the next deal. It isn't about the deal that you just closed or about all the work that you've done or about all the underwritings that you've done. Those are past. You forget about those. Don't discount all the work that you've done. Appreciate the work. Enjoy the work that you've done. Give yourself some credit and understand that you will get to the end of the tunnel, but there's so much that you've already accomplished.
Especially when people get stuck and they think only about something that they couldn't find, they cannot catch, they cannot find the deal, but they forget to have a gratitude for what they already
Yes.
achieved. And it makes the journey much better to know that, hey, listen, it's not everything is that bad. And yeah, maybe you're looking for the next deal for the last 12 months. It happens, right? For the
Yes.
right deal, you don't have to rush into the deal. But to have appreciation that you went quite a long way, you have already some assets, you already have some experience, have conversation, you met so many good people in a long way. I think that's a priceless.
Yes.
The whole journey is priceless.
Alex, it's interesting because Tony Robbins says this as well. He says, change your expectations to gratitude, right? To instead of just expecting something, expectations to appreciation. I think if you can do that, I think it's so important. And for us, when we set a goal, everyone is so focused on that goal, on closing the deal. And I've learned through time that, hey, if I need to be able to get 50,000 YouTube subscribers, or I need to close a 150 unit deal, it's not the goal itself. The goal is just the result. What I think you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to become the person that you need to be in order to hit that goal. And that's the process or the journey that's really important, not actually closing the deal or, getting to the number of subscribers, but who you need to become, all the hard work, all of the talent that you need to build, all of that grit and grinding to be able to get to it. Setting the goal is great. That's just the result. You need to fall in love with that process that you're building to be able to get to that goal.
And we touched a really important topic, like mental and understanding mindset approach here. Gino, what is your secret sauce? Do you have your annual settings? Do you have 5-year goals? Do you have your daily journal? What is your process?
I have so many processes and it's changed over the years. But I think for me, the process for me is to really get clear on what I'm trying to accomplish. Number one. Number two, I'm a hard worker. If I decide to do something, I'm gonna do it. I have to do it, right? I have to pull it through. It's just something that I was raised with, and I think that's something that people discount. I mean, people are 4-hour work week, work smarter, not work harder. Dude, you need to work harder in the beginning because life is not going to give it to you, whatever you're doing. And then ultimately you have to work smarter as you scale. I think that's important. I mean, the secret sauce right now, I'm doing something called the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I love to get up in the morning, read for 15, 20 minutes, do a little bit of journaling. I'll get some exercise in. I'll have some affirmations. I tried to start off the morning in a positive way, and I try to take that in throughout the entire day. And I think the other thing is just to have my calendar out every day and make sure that I am focused on what needs to get done. Don't make any excuses, and then tally up at the end of the week. I think that's what people need to do. Is I think they need to be more disciplined and spend less time on tasks that are wasteful and more time on tasks that will help you hit that goal of 150 units. For instance, if you're looking to close your next deal in the next 6 months, show me your calendar and I'll tell you if you're going to close the deal. Because on that calendar, you better be calling brokers. You better be doing property tours. You better be analyzing deals. You better be going out there and you better be talking to investors. Those are 4 tasks that you need to do. You need to schedule them every week. If you can call one broker a week for the next 6 months, that's 25 brokers you have spoken to. If you speak to 1 or 2 investors a week, that's 50 investors at the end of 6 months. If you can underwrite even 2 deals a week, that's at the end of 25 weeks, you're underwritten 50 deals. If you do 2 property tours a month, that's 1 every 2 weeks. At the end of 6 months, you'll have done 12 property tours. Do you see what you need to do? You need to lay it out. You need to create the process to be able to hit the goal. And I think if anybody does that, take any goal that you're trying to accomplish. If you can lay it out and it's clear and it's written down there and you know the steps that you need to take to hit that goal, inevitably, whether it's 6 months, 8 months, or a year, you will hit that goal.
I think you just mentioned 2 important things for our listeners. Number 1 is you have your morning routine, right? You set in your mindset and you clear positive thinking from the day early beginning. You don't touch your phone. I never heard in your routines that you check in your emails and phones. You don't do that. So no negative thoughts, no distraction. You just focusing on your goals, focusing on your mindset and your health in the morning. This is very important, and I think this is how you start your day. This is give you a good boost of energy and productivity. But another second interesting and important thought is that you have your goal, like annual goal. Hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to get, and you reverse engineer.
Yes.
Okay, to get to that point, I need to hit this many calls, this many, and how many days and how many calls per day I need to hit this and this and this and this. There's statistics number for everything, and you can chat GPT what is the average statistical number, and you can create your plan. You can ask ChatGPT to create a plan, schedule, and just time block your time, no distractions, and just keep keeping your targets one at a time. But don't shoot, hey, listen, I need to find this big apartment complex. This is my target. It's going to be every day looking for apartment complex. No, divide it and cross it by little target, little goals, little accomplishments that you need to hit every single day. Because there's, like you said, to get apartment complex, it's not just finding the deal, but it's also finding an investor who invests with you. Right? It's also underwriting the deal and understanding how many deals, because out of how many 100 deals, you only have a couple that will go through the process to LOI, and only maybe 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5 will actually succeed. Depends on the time we live in. But this is very important.
Alex, Stephen Covey says it's best. He says, start with the end in mind. If you can start with the end in mind in whatever you're trying to accomplish. Now, if you're trying to create a legacy for yourself, right? Your legacy is something that you set in motion, and your legacy is big. It's not only for you, it's for your kids. You know, in the book of Proverbs, it says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children. So if you have that mindset, and I do, I'm trying to think of the end in mind, which is hopefully many, many years from now, but I'm trying to think of what the end of my life looks like. And it's not just buying apartment complexes, right? It's more of like creating legacy for my family, trying to create human capital, intellectual capital, and financial capital for my family. So if I'm looking at that 30 years from now, 40 years from now, and I'm trying to really impact my generation, my kids, but not only my kids' kids, I'm going to take certain steps and certain actions today that are going to allow that picture to come to reality. And the funny thing is, just think of yourself when you're out on the ocean and there's fog and you're close to the shore, but that fog doesn't allow you to see the shore. All of a sudden the fog lifts and you're like, well, the shore is only 100 yards out. That's how most people live. There's a lot of fog and they don't have any vision. You need to be able to, as you had asked, the 1 year, the 3 year, and the 5 year, it may be a moot point. You may not know where you are 5 years from now, and things may change, but at least trying to have the type of vision that you want. And that's why Jake and I are still doing multifamily. We had an opportunity to jump into RV parks a couple of years ago because multifamily, there were no deals, but that wasn't our vision. Our vision was to control multifamily and to become the Chick-fil-A of apartments. We wanted to have superior customer service. Well, how can you do that if you're jumping into another niche and it has a completely different management process than what apartments are? So we had a clear vision on that and we passed. Thankfully, we did, and the deal started coming back to us in 23 and 24. But that's what I'm talking about with vision. We each need to understand what we're trying to accomplish, what our values are. And if you can do that, and lay that out and reverse engineer it, like you said, and bring it back into today. If you want to be a great dad, for me, the reason why I left the restaurant was because I was working on the weekends and I was working on the holidays, and it wasn't in alignment with my value, with my vision of being a great dad and being around. And then I have the opportunity to start Jake and Gino, and I have the opportunity to go away every weekend to speak on stages, to become successful and famous. And I said to myself, I left one area to go into another area, and I'm going to be doing the same thing. That doesn't fit with my picture of what I ultimately want to accomplish. I could become successful as a speaker and successful in that area, but is it really successful for what my picture and what my values are? And that's why I decided, hey, I'm only going to do a couple events a year. If I don't grow as much as I want, that's okay. I'd rather be more aligned with being at home and being with my kids than being away every other weekend at an event.
This is very powerful. But we just touched one more topic, and it's family and raising kids. And I want to real little bit talk about that. How do you raise your kids so they don't grow up with silver spoon in their mouths? You just mentioned, hey, I want to leave legacy. Legacy is great, right? You want to show example. You want to show that you build something to be proud and something that can support your family in case something happens. But if they expect inheritance and they expect that it's going to come all of them, are they going to work as hard as you did? Is that what you want for them? Or how do you raise your kids so it's not happens and they still have their own path?
That question I could spend hours on. And all I know that I've made so many mistakes raising my children, trying to push money on them, trying to push business on them. When what I should have really done is I should have really listened and heard what they wanted. Some of them loved college and went to college. The last couple don't want to go to college. They want to work and get jobs. I created Barbaro 360 because I know that family is more entrepreneurial. And this family company, what better way to teach my kids about business than to create a business with them? And it's interesting. My 26-year-old, I was talking to you about her before we hit the record button. She's 26 years old. She went to college. She started out in theater and in film. And she's like, Dad, I don't like this Hollywood thing. I don't want to do this. I said, that's fine. Gabriella, what do you want to do? She went into philosophy and she went into religion and she became a missionary. And me thinking about that, I'm like, you're a missionary. But she said, Dad, it's sort of entrepreneurial because you're out there, you're spreading the word of God, you're raising money, and I'm doing something that I love. I just want my kids to be really happy. I want them to understand how the world works. I want them to understand how money works, but I want them to do whatever they love to do. Because if you're out there, you're passionate, you're hitting on your why, sooner or later, you're just going to explode. And you're going to show up every day happy and fulfilled. And that's what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's what you're trying to teach your kids. You're not trying to push them into any area that you think would be better for them. If they come to you for help and they come to you for questions, perfect. But don't try to shove something down their throats. And for me, the college thing is interesting because some kids should go to college and some kids shouldn't go to college. It should be treated as a return on investment. If you think it's worth it to go to Harvard, to spend $500,000 to go to Harvard, do that if you think you're getting a return on investment. But if you have to go into debt and spend a ton of money on the back end, is it worth it? These are questions that you need to have with your kids. It's very, very personal. Each child is different. But I think ultimately you want to raise your kids with the ability for them to make decisions on their own. You don't want to tell them all the time, do this, do that. You want them to struggle. And that is one of the hardest things to do as a parent, is to see your child struggle and not step in. I had this situation yesterday with one of my daughters. She's trying to get a massage license in a doctor's office. It's been 3 months. She's been dealing with the Board of Health here in Florida. She can't pull it through. She broke down yesterday, and I just sat there and listened. Didn't tell her what to do. Then she started asking questions, and I just started coaching her. And all of a sudden, she came up with the idea. She ended up calling somebody up and she's got a solution. But she struggled for 3 months. And it's hard watching your child struggle, but you want them to build that psychological grid. Now, as she gets older, she becomes part of the family, becomes part of the legacy. She has the experience that she's been through, and she hasn't grown up with that silver spoon. She's had her own challenges. And that's what I think we all want for our kids, to be able to have challenges in a controlled environment where they can learn, they can make mistakes, and they can learn from those mistakes.
Love it. Well, you just mentioned something very interesting. Um, College fund. You said it's cost 500,000. You need to understand if you go into debt into it, what's return on investment. So obviously you can afford paying the check in a heartbeat. But do you make sure your kids have responsibility for that bill, or how do you process that with them? Do you have your college fund for them, or do you, hey, listen, you have to take that on that, and this is a process?
Do you remember that very first deal that I had bought, that 25 unit deal? Well, that deal on average every month we get about $8,000 to $9,000 in cash flow. I own a third of that deal. That's $2,000 a month in cash flow. That deal put my first child and my second child into college. So when people say, hey, I'm saving for college, I want people to save for an asset. That asset will pay for the event. When the event is over, you still have the asset. That's the difference between the middle class mindset and the wealthy mindset. I still have that asset printing $2,000 a month on average for me. That asset's worth over $2.5 million right now. We paid $700 for it. So that's how you create wealth. It takes time. And for me with college, I paid for them because I mirrored and patterned what my parents did. My parents paid for me. They gave me a really huge head start. But that being said, my kids are really responsible with money. My 26-year-old, the 23-year-old, and the 20-year-old, they have significant net worths because whatever money they're saving and whatever money I paid for college, they have it in the bank and they invest into my deals. My deals have cash flowed. They've refinanced. They've gotten money from those, and they continue. And I have my kids all in stock, all in the stock market. They're all investing in mutual funds because they understand the money. They all live at home. I bought them their own cars. They're very responsible. It depends on what kind of kids you have. I've got amazing kids. We've homeschooled the kids. So they're just wonderful. My wife is incredible. So we've been able to really raise our kids, and they're really responsible. So they're responsible. They understand the luck and what they've had. But then I'm lucky because I had it from my parents, and my parents really gave me a big head start in life. I appreciated that. And I just have tried to mirror that for my children. That's what's worked in my family.
Love it. Love it. And at what age do you introduce them to investment world?
Great question. My son was 15, almost 16 years old. He had $5,000 in the bank, and he said, Dad, I want to buy an amp. I said, Mike, how much is this amp? He says it's about $2,000. I said, Mike, do you need to buy this amp? He goes, Dad, this thing is really cool. I said, how many do you have? I've got 2. I said, Mike, why don't you keep the money? And when I get a deal, you can invest your money in the deal. And for 6 months, he wore me down. And finally, and this is where you need to be a parent, you need to be an adult. I knew that I didn't want him to spend 40% of his net worth on something that he didn't really need. He ended up investing that $5,000. This is 7 years ago. That $5,000 has turned into a 7-figure net worth. He's making almost $5,000 a month in positive cash flow from the investments. So for me, once they start to turn 14, 15 years old, start having those conversations. And now my 17-year-old, I do a weekly homeschool lesson with them on money. And it's just every one day a week, I just introduce a new topic and I start talking about assets, liabilities, income statements, balance sheets. I start talking about taxes. They have jobs. Then they start asking questions and you have to make it fun. And she just said to me the other day, Dad, when you talk about business with Michael, I understand what you guys are talking about. Your language becomes your experience. If you talk about money in the home and you talk about FICO scores and you talk about renting versus owning and you talk about net worth and you talk about assets minus liabilities equals, net worth equals owner's equity. If you talk about these things, the kids just start naturally hearing it and it becomes their experience. But you need to do that as a parent. You need to learn yourself because you're mirroring whatever you're mirroring, they are actually absorbing it in the household. If you don't talk about money, or if you're always afraid, you're always scared about money, I mean, and I've been there, it'll just transform onto them. So you just need to be really careful when you're talking to them about money. And I think, by the time they're 14, 15, you can have the conversation. When they're younger, you can introduce saving, spending, giving money to charity. I've had the 3-bucket system with them when they were really young, just so they could see their money. I want them to be able to see the money and see what money does. I want them to understand that money is just a tool. That's what I want them to understand early on. And as they get older, as they start getting jobs and their first paycheck is, Dad, I made $100, but why is there only $91 in my paycheck? I said, well, welcome to the world of taxes. Let's have that conversation. Then they get curious. Then when they start asking you questions, that's the door that opens to be able to have those conversations. Don't do what I did when they're 8 years old, wanting them to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Doesn't work so well. I mean, like, they're not ready for it yet. And if you start becoming domineering and you start pressuring them, they're going to turn away and say, I don't want to have anything to do with this stuff. Make it fun, make it enjoyable, and let them be curious about it.
Let them come to you.
Yes.
Versus going forward with what you want have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I like how we touched already so many topics. We touched family, mindset, and personal growth, right, and development. I want to go back to your personal development. At what stage, what was a pivotal moment for you to start growing your apartment multifamily empire? You grew to over 1,800 units. I mean, this is not a small feat. This is a huge sin. How long did it take you to grow to this, and what was your steps in that direction?
The biggest difference that I had between owning a restaurant for, let's say, about 20 years. I exited in 2016. I started in 1994. I had one restaurant for 20-something years. With Jake and myself, from our very first deal to 1,000 units was less than 5 years. So what was the difference? And to me, it was core values, and it was a mission statement. And it was understanding, and like you said, mindset. It was the I'm a mentality. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm a gets burned out. And understanding that we needed to create systems and continue to invest in our education. I had never scaled a company. And I give Jake a lot of credit for this. We started working with EOS Traction by Gino Wickman. I know a lot of the listeners have probably heard of Gino Wickman. We've interviewed him. He's amazing. We've worked on Traction. Then we started working with Vern Harnish's company called Scaling Up, understanding that you need to build a foundation. If you're going to grow anything, you need to have a strong foundation. We didn't have a strong foundation. We didn't have systems, and we didn't have processes. And it's not complicated, but when you don't know what you don't know, you can get into big trouble. And we never at one point outgrew our infrastructure. We never got ahead of our skis. When we started to, that's when we realized, hey, we need help here. We need to be coached here. What can we do to get better? And then all of a sudden, whether it's a cadence of accountability, daily calls, end of days, quarterly meetings, all that stuff, none of that stuff we were doing. It wasn't happening early on because we didn't need it, because we were just Jake, myself, and a couple of employees. But as you start scaling, you need these systems and these processes. And thankfully, we went out once again. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to learn in the street, because if you learn in the street with multifamily, you could lose not tens of thousands, you could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we decided to go out and find coaches.
No, I like it. And I think it's a really important message here: building a system, creating a system, and follow systems, because one deal can be lucky shot, right? But if you can replicate the process over and over and again, and it's still a good deal, that you're doing something right.
Yes.
And at what stage did you decide, okay, I've been mentored, I grew to 1,000 units. When did you decide to become coach yourself?
That is another amazing question, because I started in 2014. I went out and became a life coach. I really was in this personal development. I was hungry for it. I'm like, I want to get out of this restaurant. How do I do that? And the irony is, 2 years after I became a life coach, I left the restaurant. So I don't know if there's a correlation, but I just became really inspired. I loved to coach. I loved to talk to people. And in 2016, Jake is like, hey, why don't we start a podcast? Why don't we write a book? Okay. We weren't that successful. We didn't have that many units. We had about 400 units, but we decided. And what I learned was, when you start teaching stuff, you become a much better investor because you really need to focus. You really need to learn. And then all of a sudden you're starting to interview some great people, whether it's Ken McElroy, whether it's the people from Bigger Pockets, whether it's Robert Kiyosaki, whether it's T. Harv Eker. The list goes on and on. Every week you're speaking to somebody who's a genius in what they're doing. You're going to learn. That it became our weekly mastermind. And for me, it was invaluable. And I started the Jake and Gino community just to say, hey, I want to monetize. I want to make money from the education. But what I learned was it is incredible way for you to mastermind, for you to learn from others, for you to actually learn the systems and the processes that you need to get your business to be better. And then all of a sudden you create a brand, the Jake and Gino brand. We start having events. And guess what? We start building an investor database and we start syndicating from that database. Didn't know you could do that as well. People started liking us. They started trusting us. And that, I think, was the progression. It started for those reasons, but for me, it was something so much bigger. And to this day, every week, we have people on, whether they're investors, business leaders, thought leaders, communication experts. We learn a little golden nugget for our business. So for anybody out there starting a podcast, it's awesome because you talk to so many different people. And as you're providing value to the listener, you're learning a ton of stuff as well.
100%. Me, myself, I mean, it's already 55 episodes out. I remember from the first episode, I was nervous, I was talking, and it helps to build in your talking points, your experience with this stuff. And it really helps to clear your thoughts and have better conversations in a way, and better communicate your thoughts.
I agree.
So your coaching system. So what did you coach people at your early stages? Was it how to underwrite deals, how to find the deals, or were it all together as a whole bucket?
I mean, the crazy thing was the Jake and Gino community. We started the buy right, the manage right, and the finance right. It was really focused on multifamily, and we taught people to really build the business. It was most people out there would teach you how to finance the deal and buy the deal. But once you did that, well, how are you going to run this deal? No one taught to manage right. And we excelled at that because we were operators ourselves. So for us, I think the first 7 or 8 years, we had taught over, hundreds of students. Our students closed over 80,000 units. They did over $5 billion in deals. They raised almost $800 million for their deals. We were really successful. But January of this year, I exited the business because for me, I had a struggle. I always said to myself, why are some people so successful and can close deals? And maybe they shouldn't be closing deals. And then there's another segment of the population that, well, these people have all the money, they've got the experience, and they're not closing deals. Well, why is that happening? And then I understood it's all about a person's relationship with money. And I'm like, I can teach you multifamily. Real estate's pretty easy. It's not really that hard to learn how to buy a deal. It really isn't. But the psychology behind it, people's behaviors, their beliefs, their patterns around money is usually what gets in the way with it. That's why I'm like, I want to learn more about this money coaching. I want to learn more about behavioral psychology when it comes to money, because if we can solve for that and we can move that away, and then all of a sudden, hey, I may not even want to buy multifamily. I may want to do something different. If you can have that epiphany and go towards something else and say, you know what? I thought I wanted multifamily because that's all I heard. Multifamily is going to get you rich. It's the right vehicle. Maybe you just said, I want to buy a business. So getting clear on that and working on your relationship with money, if you can start there, that's the foundation that you need before you can jump up and start building whatever you're trying to build.
So is this what your Barbaro 360 is focused nowadays?
Yeah, it's focused on money coaching and business behavioral coaching, because it's the same thing with a business. When people are in business and they're struggling, they're trying to 10x their business. They're not really taking into effect the behavioral aspects of what's going on. They may be self-sabotaging. They may not have the skills either. I mean, I've scaled the corporation. I've scaled the education. I've scaled the multifamily. There's certain things that you need to do, certain strategies, certain techniques, certain foundations that you need, but it does come down to your behaviors. If you're sitting there trying to scale a business and you think that money and rich people are greedy and evil, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. All I'm saying is good luck trying to make money with that kind of unconscious pattern running through your mind. If you think Elon Musk is evil and all rich people are evil, but you're trying to build a successful business, I'm going to tell you right now, good luck with that, because you will not attract that, because your survival instinct will tell you, if I get rich, am I going to become evil? All I'm here to tell you is money does not corrupt the person. It reveals the person. That's all I have to say about that. And I look at someone like Elon Musk, and I don't think he really cares what his net worth is. I think people care, especially people who don't like rich people. I think he cares about changing the world. I think he cares about bringing amazing technologies. I think he cares about solving problems and creating solutions. And that's what it is. Money's just the result. He's been massively successful. Now, obviously, he's worked his ass off. He has clarity. He's gotten into the right ventures, whatever you want to say, but he's taking massive risks. And I think he understands what his why is. Money doesn't drive him. There's other things that are driving him, but he's become so successful and he's created so much value that, inevitably the money will show up.
Yes, no, I agree. So in your Barbaro 360, let's talk deeper about your programs. What programs do you offer? Is there a couple of different programs? And tell us a little bit about structure and how long those are and what is the goal here?
The goal here is really to start a community. We have a school community on Barbaro 360, and I want to just start it free. It's a free platform there where I have all the podcasts there. I have some courses on there. I want to really focus on the families because I think families with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. I think if you see all the problems that we're having nowadays, it's all about families breaking down, mothers and fathers getting divorced, having issues with money. I want to focus on that. I want to bring the spotlight back to the husband and wife relationship. And if you have a strong relationship with your spouse, your kids see that you have a healthy family unit. It's everything. Because I see from my parents, because everyone nowadays says, oh, people are poor. My parents in Italy were poor. But what they did have that most rich people here in this country don't have is they had family. If they needed something, if they needed a piece of bread or a couple of potatoes down the street, a family member could help them out. And family is so important nowadays that we've discounted it. So for me, the Barbaro 360 really is all around family. It's really teaching about money principles. We have a happy money course in there as well. I wrote the book, Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy, because for me, those three components go hand in hand. If you can build a happy family, then ultimately you're going to work towards that legacy and try to create a happy legacy for your family as well. But it has to start with creating happy money. And I think if people understand that and understand their relationship with money, so we do that through various things. We have various different coaching programs. I have a wealth and legacy coaching program. My wife is a high performance coach and she's a money coach as well. So we're really focused around those aspects. But ultimately, we want to really help families understand and have those hard conversations about money because money is really emotional. It's an emotional topic that most people avoid. And if you avoid a topic and you don't learn how to argue about it and have discussions around it and push it aside, when you become an adult, you are also going to have the same pattern that you adopted from your family. You're going to avoid it and you're not going to want to talk about it. And unfortunately, money is everywhere. It touches us all throughout the day. And if we don't understand that and we don't have that relationship with it, we're going to struggle throughout the day and struggle in our lives.
Love it. So you mentioned you built in a community. So the goal is to create a community of like-minded people who can support each other on this journey and engage with each other. And at what format it's going to be? This will be a mastermind format with also educational courses, or is it going to be just a community that can engage with each other on your platform?
We're in the process of building all of that right now. I'm doing one-on-one coaching right now. I'm going to be coming out with weekly calls. I'm going to be coming out with workshops. We're actually even building an e-com store. My son wants to build an e-commerce store. I'm like, I want you to build it because I want you to learn how to build and run a business. If you can run an e-com store, you can do all of the research, you can buy the product, you can do the marketing. If you learn how to do that and you learn how to run the business, you can translate that and bring that into any other area. So for me, it's all of these different various programs that we're building right now. But if you want to learn more, just go to barbaro360.com, schedule a call with me, and I'll see what fits best with you. Because I think people are, in all different areas. Some people have businesses they want to work on. Some people have, coaching on money. They want to have a better relationship with money. Some people want to be high performers. My wife is a high performance coach. Amazing. I love the program that she has. And if anybody's struggling with high performance and wants to become a better performer, just reach out and you schedule a call with her.
Love it. Love it. I like how we covered so many topics and we've been really focused on family because I think you're right. Everything's coming from the family. Family is healthy and you have a good
Mhm.
relationship because your wife or husband, it's your best friend, right? You spend the most time at your home. So if you have a good, healthy relationship between each other, that goes a long way. And if you have hiccups, if something
Mhm.
doesn't work, your partner, your wife, your husband, you support you on this journey. And this what helps you, gives you a little more juice, a little more energy to go and continue efforts to become who you are and make your family successful. So Gina, I only have a last few questions for you. So right now it's quick hits
Sure.
lightning round. So whatever first comes to your mind, just let us know. One book or resource that shaped
Mm.
your real estate mindset.
I mean, there are so many books out there. For me, I'll just say Stephen Covey, the Seven Habits. I mean, that really shaped my mindset on what I needed to do to hit goals and to be a better not only investor but better entrepreneur.
Very interesting. Like it. Okay, I've read this book. I like to reread some of the important books, and I think it's very important. Either audible or rereading them once a year. Just one of the books just stands out. Keep coming up. Okay, most important trait a business leader should develop.
The most important trait a business leader should develop, I think it's listening and I think it's communication. And unfortunately, most people aren't very good listeners or they don't know what listening is. They think they listen, but then they talk, but really trying to connect. If you can connect with somebody, then you can solve the problem. But if there's no connection between two people and you're going into solve mode, then your team's not going to trust you. You need to listen, you need to really hear, and I think you need to be able to empower your team.
I like it. You mentioned earlier accountability is one of the important traits, but if you don't communicate your expectation stuff, how can someone can be accountable for something? If you have other people
Mm-hmm.
doing some different stuff, everyone going their own direction, there's no communication, then there is no accountability. That everything's coming first from the communication back and
Mm-hmm.
forth and be able to communicate yourself in the best way.
So a smart person knows the answers. A wise person knows the questions to ask. And I think a business leader needs to know what questions to ask. Not to know the answer, because if you ask a good enough question, then the answers will follow. And I think most people who think that they're smart, they can answer every question. But sometimes when you've been doing something for so long, you just see things in a certain paradigm. But when you can step outside and start asking questions, the more questions that you ask, it'll lead to another question. And that's really important as a business leader, not to be stuck in a bubble like you're seeing nowadays, where people are in their own bubble and everyone's an expert, right? Inflation is transitory. Our interest rates are low. The market, whatever it is, if you're in the bubble and you don't step out and ask questions and go, is inflation really transitory? Is that what's going on? And all of a sudden you start pushing towards conventional wisdom, just ask questions.
I like it, and I like how you nonchalant you raise your kids to do the same way through your experience of doing business and asking the right question. You encourage your kids to ask the question to you, so you can communicate better and encourage the thinking, business thinking, and business leader
Mhm.
thinking to this process. Very powerful. Okay, one thing you wish you knew earlier in your real estate journey.
I mean, early on, I wish I had understood that real estate was a business. It's not just a collection of assets where you're going to buy and all of a sudden you're going to let them run by themselves and you don't need any systems and you don't need any processes. And I think a lot of people are figuring that out right now. And the fact that you need to understand it is about buying the asset, it's about getting the right financing, but it's also about managing the asset. And if you don't have operations and you don't treat it as a business, sooner or later, you're going to lose a lot of money.
100%. Jenna, I have only one last question for you. If someone wanted to reach out to you to hear more about your program and talk about the mentorship one-on-one, how can people find you?
Just go to Barbaro, Barbaro 360.com. You can schedule a call there. Alex, we've got all of our podcasts there. Start listening to our podcasts. And like I said, if you want to schedule a call, just hit the button and I'd love to talk to you.
Love it. Gino, thank you so much. That's a wrap. Thank you for sharing your incredible story, going from 0 to 1800, changing your life trajectory of you and your family for the best. And you still keep pushing and you still keep evolving today with your new ventures. And God bless. And I wish you all the best with your new goals and new targets and your family-oriented new trajectory.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. And to all listeners, go follow Gino, check out Jake Gino and Barbaro 360, tune into his books and shows. And as always, keep moving forward.